Hey guys, what's up? It's JR Cuber, and in this video, I'm going to be doing my full review of the GAN 356i. I've already made an unboxing and first thoughts video, and a lot of my thoughts are still pretty similar from that video, so make sure to watch that one as well. I'm going to try not to repeat myself too much in this video. So the GAN I is GAN's latest 3x3. It is a electronic smart cube, so it connects via Bluetooth to the app Cube Station on your phone. In the app, you can track your solves, see in-depth breakdowns of your solves, and also race other people in an online battle mode. This is also the most expensive stock 3x3 out there. It is $89 from the Cubicle, which is pretty crazy. This is a very experimental cube, and I'm sure a lot of work went into making it, so I can see why it's priced that high, but it is a very big investment into a puzzle that I personally don't see as much more than a novelty. Now, I think electronic cubes have potential, but in their current state, I just don't think they're that useful. It's cool to mess around in the app for a couple of days, but after the novelty wore off, I never really found myself really wanting to go back to this puzzle, simply because the app is still very buggy and has lots of issues, and there are just other better 3x3s out there, so it's not like this cube has particularly fantastic performance. I think there's a good possibility that electronic cubes will be the future of speed solving. I think it's possible that these cubes could be regulated for competition, and I think there definitely are some benefits in doing so, such as eliminating pickup and drop times, which I think would make times just more accurate overall. And so far, this cube is the closest we've gotten to a really great smart cube. But as with all new forms of electronics, or just really any piece of technology or innovation in general, it's going to take a few iterations to really work out all of the bugs and problems. For a first version, I will say it's a great start, but is it worth the money? I don't think so. So first, I just want to briefly go over the performance of the puzzle itself. This puzzle has a very stable and sandy feel, with a kind of papery smooth feeling. Its overall feel is definitely just much more rough and not quite as polished as something like the GAN X. The corner cutting is just okay, and lockups do happen on occasion. Nothing too crazy, but enough to make the performance feel slightly subpar to other GAN puzzles. The puzzle is also not all that fast, especially compared to the GAN X, which is one of the fastest puzzles out there. The problem is that this puzzle doesn't seem to react to lubricant as well, so lubricant really only seems to slow it down further. This definitely feels like a different plastic, and I don't know if it's cheaper, but it definitely feels cheaper than the GAN X plastic. The outside of the puzzle is also matte instead of glossy, which I really don't like. The puzzle has slipped out of my hands several times at this point, so if you want a good grip, I'd go for the black version, which is unfortunate since I know most people prefer stickerless. One positive thing I can say is that the puzzle is really light for all of the electronics that are in here. If there weren't any electronics in here, I would totally just assume this was a normal puzzle, so that's definitely good. So yeah, overall, the performance of the puzzle is pretty much just good. It's not great, and it seems to me that GAN put more focus on the electronic components and the app and getting all of that stuff to work rather than the actual hardware of the puzzle, which makes sense, but for future versions, I would definitely hope for better hardware. Okay, now let's get on to the app. So I don't know if it's just me, but to me, the app has been really glitchy actually. So I made a list of all of the glitches and bugs I've encountered, as well as some choices that I just don't understand with how the app was designed, and also future things that I think should be added. So let's go ahead and get started with some bugs and glitches that I've encountered. So there's a glitch where after a solve is done, the next scramble just won't generate, and I have to leave the scrambler and go back into it. This happened 9 times in about an hour and a half. Also, the app doesn't always start timing when you start the solve. I've had a couple solves where I've gotten like a 5. I've been like, no, that was like a 10 maybe. And then I'll look on the next solve and the timer wouldn't start till a few seconds into the solve, which is really frustrating. It makes the times you get kind of unreliable, which just about compromises the point of the entire app in my opinion. So this really needs to be fixed. Also, when you miss scramble, it can sometimes take a couple of seconds for the new moves to update. So if you immediately start doing the moves it shows, like I do, you'll just keep doing the wrong moves. It's very frustrating. You have to stop turning, wait a few seconds until the new moves appear, then continue. I also really don't like that the letters turn red if you miss scramble, which makes them completely unreadable. And you can't see the entire scramble from the start, which always slows me down when I'm scrambling. I really prefer the way the Gicker Cube app handles scrambling. If this app just did it exactly like that app, I really wouldn't have many of these problems. So now let's just talk about general things that I think could be improved. Continuing on with scrambling, I think it's odd that when you start your scramble in the algorithm scramble mode, you just get 1 minute for scrambling and inspection. And in the standard timing mode, you get 30 seconds. And by the way, I can't tell any other differences between these two modes, which is very odd. This just doesn't make any sense to me. Why not just have unlimited scrambling time, and then once you finish the scramble, your 15-second inspection begins, or even better, you have an option on whether or not it begins automatically, or you have to press a button to start inspection. Or just no inspection at all, and you just start turning when you're ready to start the solve. This is a feature on just about any other timer, so that would definitely be ideal here. Another thing is that after a solve is done, you have to wait for the animation to complete, then hit the scramble button again, and then wait for the scramble to load. This is just too slow for me, and it completely throws off my flow of solves. I'm very used to just finishing a solve and then immediately starting the next scramble, and not having to press a button to generate it. You also can't delete individual solves or clear sessions to my knowledge, and there are also no solve numbers in the statistics panel, so there's no way to even know how many solves you've done in a session. Unless I'm just dumb and I'm missing something, I couldn't find it. The app also does not record rotations accurately at all, making that piece of information on the solve breakdowns basically worthless. In battles, there's no way to rematch the same person again, which I think would be a good feature, along with some kind of chat mode. Also, there is an indicator light on the charger, but it doesn't give any indication as to when the cube is done charging, which seems like the only reason it would even be there. And one of the last things I want to mention isn't really a fault of the cube, but just something I think you guys should be aware of. I got a corner twist during one of my solves, and during last layer, I twisted a different corner back. So when I solved the cube, the virtual cube was still scrambled. So I had to use the virtual cube to solve the physical cube. And then once the virtual cube was solved, I twisted back the unsolved corners. So just keep that in mind, that if you get a corner twist, see if you can always be sure to twist back the same corner. One good thing I will say about this cube is that the battery life is actually quite respectable, I think. I used the cube for about 2 hours on a full charge, and afterwards the battery indicator on the app showed that it was at about 70%. That's what it looked like. There's really no way to see the exact percentage, but I imagine the battery in this cube really is not that big, so I think that's pretty solid. If you are actually planning on using this cube quite a bit though, I'd imagine, just like with any other piece of electronics, just throw it on the charger at night and always make sure it's charged. So overall, I think there's definitely quite a bit of work to be done before the app becomes genuinely helpful. To my knowledge, the scrambles on the app are not T-Noodle scrambles, which means they're not WCA scrambles. So it's even hard to say if the times you get really even count or not. From my experience, I've gotten way more easy scrambles than I usually ever get when using a standard timer like CS Timer. Also paired with the fact that the app doesn't start solves when you start turning 100% of the time, I think that any PBs that you would get on this cube wouldn't really count, in my opinion. Now, I've heard that getting this cube working with CS Timer is currently in development, and I think that would be awesome if that ever happened. So long as the electronic elements of this cube are only locked to this one app that's honestly filled with problems, this cube really isn't going to be that useful to anyone. Like I said, this is very good for a first iteration, but there's still plenty that can be improved upon, and I'm sure there are other problems that have arisen for other people that I haven't experienced yet. So recommending this cube is very difficult because it's really hard for me to see who this cube is even for. It's the most expensive 3x3 out there with performance that really does not match the price, and an app that isn't really that useful. So I would say if you're thinking about getting this puzzle, maybe wait until future versions of the puzzle, future versions of the app, or just until there is CS Timer integration, or integration with another kind of timer like that. Now, I know this review is a little bit of a downer. I know there's been a lot of hype around this puzzle, but I've always been dedicated on this channel to giving my honest thoughts about puzzles, and this really is my honest opinion. So, if you guys do want to check out the GAN 356i, the link, of course, will be in the description. Thanks, of course, to the Cubicle for sending me this cube for free to review and for sponsoring the video. There's also a new episode of the Dell Sony podcast, the podcast that I just joined, that is out right now. Definitely be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.